in defense of a peaceable kingdom. In December of 1763, a radical group of extremists perpetrated a hate crime against a group of innocent people, believing that they had the justification of their God's will in fulfilling this act of genocide. But for a brief moment, Philadelphians united to oppose this act of evil and defend the innocent. This is the story of the Paxton Boys riots of 1763, the demise of the Conestogas, and Philadelphia's defense of Christian Indians who sought only to practice their religion.
I should be very sorry that ever the people of this county should attempt avenging their injuries on the heads of a few inoffensive, superannuated savages whom nature had already devoted to dust.
The Pennsylvania Backcountry, 1763. The brief peace that followed the British conquest of the French and their Indian allies was shattered when native nations rose against the military occupation of their lands and the flood of settlement that followed.
The barbarians have renewed their hostilities against us, and our country bleeds under savage knife. The dreadful news of murdering, burning, and scalping is daily conveyed to us and confirmed with shocking additions.
You yourselves are the cause of this. You marched your armies into our land and built your forts here, although we have told you time and time again that we wish you to remove from our lands. Brothers, can you not understand that this is our land and not yours?
The occupants of the Pennsylvania frontier, largely Scots-Irish of the Presbyterian faith, once again find themselves in a perilous struggle to defend their homes and families, and as in the past, receiving little support from the civilized East. Their community was centered around the Presbyterian Church in the tiny village of Paxton on the banks of the Susquehanna River.
The Pennsylvania Gazette reported that more than 1,000 families in Cumberland County were driven from their houses and habitations, and all the comforts and conveniences of life. There were 1,384 refugees in Shippensburg, 301 men, 345 women, and 738 children. Large numbers of them were living in barns, stables, cellars, and under old leaky sheds, dwelling houses all being crowded. Many of these families had suffered the same losses and distresses and were deprived of their worldly sustenance, and some, their dearest friends and relatives.
They saw their hopes for a peaceable future shattered, and they reacted with blind rage against all perceived threats to that vision. But not all Indians were hostile. In a small village outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, were the remains of a once mighty nation, the Conestogas. The last of the Susquehannocks lived peaceably on the land guaranteed to them by William Penn. North of Philadelphia, near the village of Bethlehem, a Moravian mission housed Christian Delaware Indians, whose only concern was the worship of God.
They were entirely peaceable and seemed as much afraid of the other Indians as the whites were, so attached to them that they could not bear to hear them refused anything that they asked for. The Indians often spent the night by the kitchen fire of farms round about, and were as much attached to the white people, often calling their children after their favorite neighbors.
Wednesday, December 14, 1763. The Paxton Boys, armed with guns and tomahawks, attacked the Conestoga village at dawn. They slaughtered the 6 Indians they found at home. The remaining 14 were away from town selling their brooms and baskets. The dead bodies lie among the rubbish of their burnt cabins. Among their effects was the 1701 treaty signed by William Penn guaranteeing their protection. Lancaster County officials gathered the remaining 14 Conestogas into protective custody within the county jail and sent news of the massacre to newly arrived Governor John Penn.
We have only followed the Lord's word in respect to what shall be done with heathens as given us in the Holy Bible. Deuteronomy chapter 7 verse 12. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. That's what it says, and that's what we did.
On December 27th, the Paxton Boys rode into Lancaster in broad daylight. There were about 50 or 60 armed men with rifles and tomahawks. They broke into the jail and killed all the Indians inside. Eyewitnesses emphasized the brutality of the attack, including scalping and systematic dismemberment.
Those cruel men, by violence, broke open the door, and with the utmost fury, when the poor wretches saw they had no protection, nor could possibly escape, and being without the least weapon for defense, they divided into their little families. The children, clinging to the parents, they fell upon their knees, protesting their innocence, declared their love for the English, and that in their whole lives they had never done them injury. And in this posture they all received the hatchet. Men, women, and little children were everyone inhumanly murdered in cold blood. The bodies of the murdered were then brought out and exposed in the street till a hole could be made in the earth, and receive and cover them.
On November of 1763, the Pennsylvania Assembly had resolved to remove the Christian Moravian Indians to Philadelphia for their protection from angry settlers and because of suspicion of them cooperating with enemy Indians. The Indians were housed in the Province Island Pest House, a quarantine station 6 miles south of Philadelphia. As early as December 27th, rumors began to circulate that the killers at the Lancaster jail declared that they would proceed to Province Island and destroy the Indians